Alright, today we're going to paint a mini landscape 3 inches by 3 inches with watercolor pencils and color pencils on a really interesting surface. Should be a really good time. Let's get started. Since I was going to draw on a square piece of paper, I've pulled out my viewfinder to help me compose just the right shot. The whole reason I'm painting on such a small surface is because I've been in a little bit of an art block lately. You've probably been there too. For me, it's often I don't know what to draw or I don't have time to draw. Going small solves both those problems. A small painting is often faster than a large one. And for me, a small painting tells my brain that it isn't that important, and therefore I don't have to be a perfectionist about it. I can just do a quick and fun little drawing or painting and be done. I don't even have to show it to anyone. I've done a few of those lately, but you get to see this one, I guess. I hope it turns out. You can see that I started with a light drawing with graphite pencil and then started using a paper blending stump to spread the graphite out a bit. This is a great way to lightly represent the darker values and will serve as the underdrawing to the painting. Adding the watercolor pencils over the graphite works just fine for me. The surface I'm working on is actually a synthetic paper that is super smooth and not very absorbent. I like to have a bit more texture, so I've been experimenting with spraying the paper with this low odor water-based spray paint. The website says it's an alkyd-based paint, which means it's a very hard and durable surface, more so than acrylic would be. I think it gives the paper a nice texture and accepts layers of paint better than it would be without it. If you know anything about my channel, you know that I like to experiment with lots of different things. Trying different techniques is another way to break out of art block. And that light blue I used in the sky was actually a pastel pencil that I rarely use. So break out some old art supplies, and that might help you get out of an art block. I always gravitate to my favorite supplies though, so I'll be using water-soluble pencils for most of this, at least to start with. I may finish it off with some other techniques. There were a lot of grays in this scene because it's late fall, but I want to use some brighter colors to start with, and later when I blend the colors, it'll gray things down. I really like drawing outside as much as I can. I'm really fortunate to live near the mountains, and I try to get out as much as I can, but it's not always easy. Life can get really busy. I have a full-time job, and this is just a hobby for me. But it's a good one, and it's fun to take you along with me on my adventures through the videos. I also try to remind myself that since this is a hobby, I don't have to do perfect paintings, but I do want to get better at it, so I still need to practice a lot. It's a tricky balancing act, challenging myself to get better with just trying to have fun. And since I'm not a professional artist, I'm not trying to teach any specific drawing or painting techniques here. There are plenty of other YouTube channels for that, but you can see how I approach it, and hopefully you'll learn something. And hopefully you're inspired to explore art on your own, because it's fun, and I dare say, good for you. It's fun but also challenging. Blending the watercolor pencil marks is my favorite part, but the water has a mind of its own, and sometimes the colors go where I don't want them to. It can be frustrating to get marks that don't quite work, but really rewarding when they do turn out. It's kind of a fun game that way. Getting to know the materials and what to expect makes it become easier over time. Practicing with these small pieces of paper is a great way to get more practice sessions in. If I were a music player, I suppose this would be similar to practicing my scales, rather than expecting to be able to play a whole song perfectly the first time. I mentioned that I was going to use some bright colors. I'm not sure how that will work out, but I like to experiment with different techniques, and working small is a pretty low risk way of doing that too. This magenta color is really bold, but I had it in my mind that I would tone it down in the next stage of the painting, which is where I use regular pencils. Since I won't be using water to blend these, the lines will be more precise and opaque, so it'll be a good way to establish the dark shadows of those rocks on the banks of the stream, as well as some of the trunks and branches of those trees. I've been here for about an hour, and that's about all I wanted to do for the day, so as usual, I'll finish this up at home. Taking a break from the art often brings fresh eyes to a project, and even though I usually come home with a lot of inspiration if I start the sketch outside, I do like the breaks from it too. And maybe that's the last thing I'll say about supposed art block. I'm finding that sometimes I probably don't really have art block. I'm just experiencing the natural ebb and flow of creativity. Sometimes I'm really into it, and I have a lot of energy surrounding it, but then I naturally get tired of it, and I want to take a break. Sometimes that break takes a longer time to get back into it than I expected, but once I get started, the energy usually comes back. Returning to a piece that I already started usually does the trick. I say usually, but not always. Don't even ask me how many unfinished paintings I have. But I'm finishing this one now. Or at least I'm doing some touch-ups. Like I said in the beginning, painting small tells my brain that it isn't that important. So I added some highlights with that eraser, and now I'm strengthening the dark areas with some pencil. And I'm trying to stay fairly impressionistic in my approach. I know that isn't really expected with colored pencils, but I like it. And the reason I like colored pencils is they're so easy to get out and use. I can clean up and put them away just as quick. To me, it's the perfect medium. And contrary to popular opinion, I don't have to strive for photorealism with them. And the colors don't actually have to be exactly as I saw them either. I can often make the scene look right, even if it isn't photo perfect. Besides, photos aren't always right either. The sky is usually very different in the photo than it is in real life, so I'm left to render my impression and memory of the sky, rather than stay beholden to the photo. It's the same with the water. In the photo, the water is much brighter and washed out than it is in person. I saw lots of colors and reflections in the water. In order to add depth, though, I do try to make those mountains in the distance look a little bluer, and the far end of the stream a little darker. At this point, I'm just fiddling around, and I know I would have to paint much longer and much bigger to get anything more than just a quick impressionistic image of a very pretty day sitting in the mountains. I enjoyed both being outside and being able to finish up inside. I typically have more time and supplies when I'm at home, but like I already said, I'm much more likely to initiate the inspiration to use them if I start outside with some sketching, even if it's on a mini piece of paper. Thanks so much for exploring art with me. I hope you get to do some too. And if you need more inspiration, go ahead and watch this video next.